Hey everybody, today I am going to be reviewing Top Gun: Maverick. This film was directed by John Kosinski. I'd say this is the most successful film of the year, and it's the fifth highest grossing film in American history thus far. And it's really interesting that this film has seemed to unite all kinds of people, no matter what you believe, and it has touched a nerve. I admit I was never the biggest Top Gun fan. It never really resonated with me, the original film. I actually preferred Quentin Tarantino's explanation of it more. But you know, in the original, it's a Tony Scott film, so it's fun, it's very zeitgeisty, and it's kind of it is a snapshot of like a Reagan-era America, and it's represented in a very romantic sort of fairy tale, but packaged as an action adventure, which was very common at the time. And you know, I get it. I understand why people have a fondness for it. You know, the gold hues, the very kind of brash, macho, bordering on homoerotic kind of tone, the cheese of it all, the tight shirts, the aviator sunglasses, the greased up abs, you know, and Tom Cruise's lack of romantic charisma. It's all of a time period that we remember fondly. But I don't know, I always kind of found it to be thin as a movie experience. There was never really enough tread in the tires for me when it came to the story and the characters. The conflict leaves a little bit to be desired, but knowing that they were going to make a sequel just seemed very, very strange to me, because I was thinking, how the hell are they going to do this? How are they going to make a film, you know, what this represents for its time? How are they going to translate that to this day and age? The world is very, very different now. In the original Top Gun, of course, the foreign opposition is intentionally very broad. They keep the enemy very vague, and you know, that is by design, because they're trying to focus more on the simplicity of entertainment. And some have complaints about that. For me, you know, I just see it as, you know, it's a certain type of film. And yes, while oversimplification can sometimes be a detriment, I think, you know, in the instance like this, where this is meant to be kind of escapism, I like that. It reminds you of a time when, you know, there was just not tons of information just always circulating. People weren't aware of every little thing all the time, and that just kind of creates a more simple, kind of joyful type of experience. And for me, overall, even though I do have issues with this particular film, Top Gun: Maverick, I think that it balanced all of the elements I think it needed to for a sequel very, very well. I think there are a lot of reasons why this film works, but one of the main reasons for me is that it's made by people who fundamentally understand the source material in a very mature sort of way, and they have a perspective on just how complicated things have become. I think it understands specifically how to unify us in that way, through the nostalgia, of course, and through the passion and the attitude of it, the ambition. But always it stays very simple. It doesn't bite off more than it can chew. And I think it always has that same spark that you feel from the original film, while always kind of keeping that sense of time intact, the weight of things. There is a bitterness to this film throughout, because we are seeing the old ways of doing things dissolve and the new ways are coming forward. And you know, naturally that can be difficult to accept. I like that the film goes for more of like a steely, cold aesthetic, but it is always allowing those very cheesy, fun, warm elements from the original to shine through. And though I might question the logic of things, especially when it comes to breaking all the rules and such, I might question that a little bit more in this film. At the same time, a lot of the experiences do feel more impactful, and the risks feel more involving, while at the same time it is emphasizing a very metatextual type of filter, you know, like through, you know, the original source material. And as everybody knows who watches this channel, I often get very, very tired of this meta obsession we have with the postmodern films of the past, but here I actually feel like it worked, because a lot of it made sense in terms of the actual story. Now, the new film does have to cross a lot of barriers that maybe the other film didn't have, and one of those being that the country is not as united as maybe it used to be. So this fairy tale of nationalism is kind of hard to navigate, at least in a mainstream sense in the modern era. But I think that they handled that very, very well for the most part. And I think it's because they keep the villain very broad like they do in the original film, but they also make it anonymous. It's never stated out loud. And I like the way they use the new elements and the old elements together in a way that flows very seamlessly. At the beginning of the film, we already get this feeling of weight, the weight of time. You know, it's like this warning about the future of technology, drones, and humans feeling more and more futile. And that feeling does loom over the movie for sure, but I never found it to be overbearing as some sort of gimmicky plot thread. It just feels like mature storytelling. And again, all of the ideas are coming together and they're weaving themselves into the original beats of the film, the original film. Now, the plot, yes, it is silly, but it is always silly. And just knowing on paper that Maverick, the whole story here is Maverick is coming back to train the new pilots, the new graduates for this special mission. It's like, You know, it's like, is this Sister Act 2 back in the habit? I don't know, usually when somebody is coming back for a sequel to teach the kids in order to win the big competition at the end of the year, you know, it's often a red flag. But, you know, I wasn't deterred that much with this film because, again, it is Top Gun. And it is self-conscious about it, and it's having fun with a lot of those elements, which I can appreciate. And I do, again, I like that meta-examination of the original piece because it feels like we are arriving at something new through a special type of reflection. And it is not just self-awareness for the sake of self-awareness, which I feel like is the case for so many of these new franchises or these continuing franchises, you know, where we're trying to correct outdated politics to prove how much more educated we are in the modern era. And it always, at least to me, oftentimes it comes off as very smug, very off-putting. But the emotional core of the film, as I said, it's tying in the old with the new, and that's where we're getting a lot of that because, you know, we're lacking, you know, a major antagonist here for sure. But there are a lot of complexities that come with that. Miles Teller, obviously, is Goose's kid, and he's representing the new generation here. And obviously Goose died in the original film, and naturally Maverick has a lot of guilt about that experience. And all of those demons from the past, not just there, but in all kinds of ways, that is represented through the Miles Teller character. And that allows Maverick, or Tom Cruise really, it's more a metaphor for, it's a metaphor for Tom to work out, I think, the demons of his career, the mistakes he's made. And both are very frustrated people with their identity for sure, and having those two generations meet up, and they obviously have a history, but they have to work through their issues and come out on the other side. It is satisfying to watch. And obviously Maverick has to face his own brashness, his own persona, that rebellious streak he has as a pilot, and the consequences, you know, of that in his life, in his career. Because no matter what, it is who he is, and it is who he always will be. And so when I'm looking at this film from an emotional perspective, what I take away from that more is, you know, how this is more a meta-examination of Tom Cruise. And I think that this film is kind of a culmination of a certain aspect of his career. And it's a peak in the Americana persona that he embraces. And I think that's really wonderful, the way it's represented here. Perhaps it leans a little bit too heavily on that kind of Tom Cruise emblem for the emotional crux of the story. But again, it is very satisfying to see somebody come full circle, no matter which way you look at it. Because, you know, obviously when we look at Tom Cruise, at the beginning of his career, back when Top Gun came out, the original Top Gun, he was such a huge star. And he's making all these huge, important movies, big budget movies. And we see that he has a knack for action films and more that type of performance quality. But, you know, he does take some very interesting risks as well. You know, he's starting to do things where he stretches his acting, like in movies like Eyes Wide Shut or Magnolia, Collateral, the list goes on. And obviously, you know, in the mid-2000s in particular, we start to see some kind of questionable public behavior from Tom, as well as, you know, obviously his Scientology. People struggle with that. And that, for a while, did tarnish his legacy a little bit. And little by little, I've noticed in the last, you know, maybe 8 years or something, he's returning to a certain type of style that maybe he really likes. Less for the more complex parts and the acting and all of that. And he's going more for the stunts and the action and the thrill and pushing the limits of what those types of movies can do. Because he comes from an era where he represents what it means to create an experience for real. And it's his status, I think, and his power just as a movie star where he can allow for things like that to happen in the industry. And Tom Cruise does have just a very inspirational quality to him. It's like no matter what, whether you like him or you don't like him, there's something about him where you just really feel inspired to just like go and follow him. And I started to notice the shift back into something more simple for him, you know, with like Jack Reacher and then maybe some other movies. And then obviously with the Mission Impossible sequels, he really went for it in terms of the stunts and everything. But I feel like this is the film that's truly the culmination of everything in a really interesting way, where it is solidifying the grassroots legacy and in the reflection of it all in a way that does feel just satisfying, but also, you know, there is a hint of that melancholia. Tom Cruise just has a smile where no matter what you feel, it's like, it feels like he can unite us all in a very cheesy, but, you know, somewhat inspirational type of way. And I do like seeing him kind of take the forefront as a teacher and somebody who wants to inspire the next generation of filmmakers and all of that. And I think my favorite scene in the whole thing was, spoiler alert, but when he is reunited with Ice, the Val Kilmer character. And I think it was a really tasteful moment of being able to show him on screen in a way that is recognizing reality in a way that both of these people are in the autumn of their years. It's scenes like that, or the scenes with Tom Cruise and Miles Teller, that I think are the best parts of the film. I'm less a fan of the romantic stuff with Jennifer Connelly. It just feels like a weaker element for sure. And yes, we all make fun of the Kelly McGillis stuff. And in the first film, she was obviously the love interest of that one. There's obviously a silly kind of forced romantic chemistry there. That is, yeah, it's very awkward. But I don't know. This felt like kind of a forced retread of that particular element, whereas the rest of everything felt a lot more easy. And I just wish they would have handled it maybe in a little bit more of a clever, more cheeky sort of way. But yeah, of all the elements, it's the one that maybe I struggle with the most. And yes, while the film is obviously very meat and potatoes, and it is very clean, as I like to say, I did kind of long for maybe some more tension in the actual action sequences. Now, I will preface this by saying I think that the flight sequences in the air are just fantastic. I mean, the cinematography is amazing, and the fact that they're doing so much practical stuff in the air, it's elegant, it's slick, it's really, really impressive. But because this is a big climactic action sequence in the third act, I kind of wanted more of an emotional resonance, and I kind of wanted to feel more the struggles the pilots have themselves. And because there is, kind of a looseness to a lot of the logic when it comes to the believability of Maverick's rebelliousness in this particular film, I don't quite feel the stakes as much. But this could just be a me problem. It could be just my personal taste. I think I wish for it to be a little bit less slick at times. Don't get me wrong, I think these are some of the most exciting action sequences I've seen in a long time, and they're ambitious in a way that just rarely exists anymore, and I have to applaud it for that. And it knows that it's on its last leg, and you can feel it. And again, that is the thing that maybe impacts me more, rather than being more invested in the story. It's the fact that this film is kind of, experiencing that melancholia, knowing that these kinds of movies and being able to make them in this way, it's hanging by a thread. And as I said, there are all kinds of different reasons I think that this did touch a nerve with American audiences, but in particular, that is the thing that resonated with me for sure. And I love that this film can just bring people together and remind us of our past, while also looking to the future at the same time. It is entertaining us as well as allowing us to reflect on a lot of different things, from a Hollywood perspective, from a cultural perspective. I'm so pleased that a movie like this can still be made, even though I have such low hopes for Hollywood overall. I'm very satisfied with this type of film. This is a film where it truly is fan service done right. But that is my review. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to plug my website as always. It is deepfocuslens.com. I'm an artist. I do commissioned portraits, and I also sell prints of my work. If that is something that you're interested in, you can always go to the website below. And if you have a question about a commission or a print, you can always email me. My email is in the description box below as well. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to my patrons who are fantastic. Guys, thank you so much for your support. Welcome to the new members. If you are interested in supporting, the link for that is below, as well as the rest of my social media information. You can watch more videos here, and you can subscribe if you'd like. Catch you next time.